Marcus Gentry is the founder and president of A Mastermind Creation, a business service that develops and delivers programs that enhance personal and professional growth, empowerment, and leadership. It also includes educational training and motivational presentations. Mr. Gentry is an internationally recognized public speaker and trainer who has been providing seminars and workshops for over 25 years. Here's a small sampling of Marcus Gentry's workshops.
There is a very popular piece of poetry that's entitled If. It was written by a man named Rudyard Kipling, and it begins this way. If you can keep your head when all about you is losing theirs and blaming it on you. The first line of that piece of poetry pretty much embodies the theme of what this workshop is about, which is how to successfully manage stress and change during difficult times. We will define stress this way as basically when the unexpected happens to the unprepared. We'll identify it as a set of stressful thoughts because what we have learned is that it is not as much having to do with what happens, but it's our reaction to it that makes all the difference in the world. So we begin by looking at some of the barriers, some of the reasons why people may hang on to those stressful feelings because it's benefiting them in some way. So we begin by looking at that. One thing is that sometimes it's used to push people away. So when they tell people that they're feeling stressful, they can use that to push people away. Sometimes they use it to gain sympathy for themselves by saying that they're under stress or things like that. There's something that some of you know of that's called a codependency, where people are so dependent on doing things for other people, even though they spend most of their time complaining about the things that they're actually doing. Barriers that can get in the way are things that keep us from seeing ourselves or seeing the situation exactly as it is. This automatic wall of denial that comes up, that keeps us from seeing ourselves, is a major barrier for overcoming stressful thoughts during change or challenging times. That denial has so many different faces. One face is that of anger, because it pushes people away, and when the person becomes angry, it's not really about you, it's really about them not wanting to see themselves. Sometimes that denial shows itself up as comparison by saying, yes, there is a problem, but it's not as bad as this person or this situation over here. Therefore, I don't need to do all that's necessary to create a change. One of the other barriers that interferes with our ability to do well and see things well is what I call the dangerous duo, and that's fear and anger. Because when that emotion of fear builds up in us, what happens is we tend to see things in an exaggerated way. When the emotion of anger builds up in us, it causes us to rush in too quickly to circumstances sometimes. Those are just a few of the barriers that can interfere with our ability to successfully manage what will be considered as a stressful situation or a situation that creates stressful thoughts for us. We know we ultimately have to either change the situation or change the way we look at it, change our thoughts about it. But it's not as easy as it sounds, is it? Because we've learned that our thoughts are rooted in our values and beliefs, which rest inside of the non-conscious or subconscious part of our brain. Our values and beliefs, our perceptions, and our experiences all tie into creating thoughts that we have. So it takes a lot of work to get through that. So there are 5 areas that we cover, and in those 5 we'll cover the AAA for successfully managing that stress. The first thing that we have to do is ask a series of questions. The first question that we ask ourselves, do we have a burning desire to want to change the situation? Do we and are we willing to make a plan to change it? Are we willing to put in the necessary work to change the situation? We ask the question of, where is this thing in your life that's creating stress for you? Is it something that happened in the past? Is it something that is going to happen in the future possibly? Or is it something that's going on right now? That's where we begin asking the questions. The next thing we have to do to manage a stressful situation or change, and that's sometimes just be able to laugh about it. find the humor in even the most critical situation. And just that moment of laughter or humor can lighten things up for us. Then we come to the powerful triple A. The very first A is the assessment. It is impossible to create a successful strategy for solving anything until we have thoroughly and properly assessed what's going on. So we spend most of our time talking about this assessment and what the assessment looks like. The first thing that we have to assess is, what is success going to look like once we achieve it? Do we have a crystal clear picture of what that success looks like? Second thing we're going to assess is, are we free enough to act in our own best interests? Once we know exactly what it is to change the situation, are we willing and free enough to do that? Are we psychologically shackled to the opinions of other people? We want to assess our resources. We want to assess what skills we have, assess what options are available, and the things inside of us, our resources. Are we willing to take a close look at those things to manage that situation? The second A has to do with the adjustment. Everything is created twice. The chairs that you're sitting in, this building, the microphone, everything is created twice. First, mentally, and then the physical manifestation of that. So we have to, first of all, visualize and have a clear picture of what we want to do, how we want to go about it, and then work at trying to create it. We have to do what's called elevating above the battlefield. It's a strategy that actually Sun Tzu talks about when he says we have to elevate to a position. You know the expression, not seeing the forest for the trees. We want to elevate so that we can see the forest and the trees with crystal clear clarity and adjust ourselves to do whatever it is that has to be done. The last step is that of activation. That means putting the plan in place. There's a piece of poetry that goes this way: no cities were built or great battles fought by people just sharing the things they thought. Action is truly the ultimate goal, because only from this can the story be told. So ultimately, we want to be able to take action on whatever these steps are. So to recap, we ask the critical questions that are necessary. We find humor where we can in the most stressful situation or when something changes. Thirdly, we make the necessary assessment so that we can properly create a plan. We adjust ourselves to the plan that we're going to have to make. And lastly, we activate that plan by putting into action. And that encompasses the things that we will discuss in successfully managing stress and change during difficult times. Let's get started.